April 2, 2025, will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day we began to make America wealthy again. It's years behind schedule and tens of billions of dollars over budget, but oil is now flowing through the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, which the federal government purchased in 2018. The moment, the new Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is speaking about President Trump's tariffs. Listen to what he just said: a colossal pipeline, decades in the making, finally stretches from Canada's oil-rich heartland to the Pacific coast, opening up access to Asia's vast markets. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, a $34 billion project launched in May 2024, was expected to reshape Canada's energy landscape, allowing it to export crude oil more freely, rather than relying on the U.S., which had been receiving 98% of Canadian oil exports for years. But just as oil started flowing, a major development occurred. Donald Trump, considering a return to the White House, proposed a 10% tariff on Canadian oil and gas. This posed a significant challenge for Canada's economy. In response, China's Rangsheng Prochemical, a large refining company with a daily capacity of 800,000 barrels, took action. Quietly and strategically, it established a presence in Calgary, Alberta, and signed a deal with Suncor Energy, a major Canadian oil producer, to begin shipments in June 2025 from the Pacific Coast. What appears to be a simple trade agreement may signal the beginning of a major shift in global energy. Canada is beginning to extend its influence beyond its borders. This is just the beginning. Yesterday marked the latest of President Trump's new U.S. tariffs, aimed at reshaping global trade. Rangsheng's entry into North America is a significant step. The company, part of Ziyang Rangshan Holding Group, runs one of China's largest refineries and has a strong demand for heavy crude, which is exactly what Canada's oil sands produce, according to Reuters. Rangsheng's Calgary office, located in a modern downtown tower, is focused on building stable long-term supply chains, as China looks to reduce its reliance on Middle Eastern oil due to global uncertainties. Its first major step is a long-term contract with Suncor, involving 200,000 barrels per month to be shipped from Burnaby to Zhang. Bloomberg reports that initial shipments are already scheduled on large crude carriers. Rangsheng is also in talks with other major Canadian oil companies, such as Cenovus Energy, which produced 800,000 barrels per day in 2024, and Canadian Natural Resources Limited. It is also engaging with global firms like BP and Shell, which are involved in Canada's oil sands. These agreements use FOB, free on board, terms, allowing Rangsheng to control shipments and redirect them to countries like Japan or India if prices rise, potentially earning $2 to $3 more per barrel, according to S&P Global. This is a major milestone. "We've waited many years for this," said one industry expert. Building pipelines of this scale is extremely difficult. Despite the high costs and delays, this project will finally give Canada improved market access. Canada is one of the largest oil producers in the world. Leading Rangsheng's efforts is Wang Jia, a 20-year oil industry veteran who previously established PetroChina's Canadian trading operations in the 2000s. With his experience and connections, Wang Jia is guiding Rangsheng's move into Canada's energy sector. The company is aiming to secure 10% of the Trans Mountain expansion's capacity by 2026. Industry insiders told Energy Intelligence that the Trans Mountain expansion, TMX, is key to this transformation. After tripling its capacity to 890,000 barrels per day, enough to fill 50 Olympic-sized swimming pools daily, TMX began commercial operations on May 1, 2024, following years of legal challenges and rising costs. The original estimate of $7.4 billion, as reported by CBC News, has significantly increased. TMX has been owned by the Canadian government since its acquisition. $4.5 billion purchase from Kinder Morgan in 2018, TMX faced strong opposition. Environmentalists raised concerns about spill risks in the Salish Sea, while the Tsleil-Waututh Nation and others filed lawsuits over insufficient consultation, delaying construction until a 2022 Supreme Court ruling allowed it to proceed. Now, With 20 new storage tanks and an upgraded Westridge Marine Terminal, TMX connects Alberta's landlocked oil to Asian refineries, which value Canada's heavy sour crude due to its compatibility with complex processing facilities. According to the International Energy Agency, for decades, Canada's 3.88 million barrels of daily oil exports were largely tied to U.S. Gulf Coast and Midwest refineries, often sold at a $15 per barrel discount due to pipeline constraints. TMX changes that dynamic, with early shipments already reaching South Korea's GS Caltex in August 2024. Based on tanker tracking data from CLR, Ottawa views this as a $20 billion annual economic boost, but critics warn that even one spill could severely impact British Columbia's coast. The government has responded with a $1.5 billion spill response fund. Tariff threats from the U.S. accelerated Canada's diversification efforts. In 2023, energy exports to the U.S. totaled 200 billion Canadian dollars, according to Statistics Canada. A 10% tariff could reduce Canadian producer profits by $10 billion annually. The Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers says U.S. refiners, which process 3.9 million barrels of Canadian crude daily, would be affected. Goldman Sachs predicts that U.S. gasoline prices could increase by 80 cents per gallon. A politically sensitive issue during an election year, Canada took action. In June 2024, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a $6.5 billion global markets accelerator plan, with $5 billion to help oil and gas exporters enter Asian markets and $1 billion to support farmers affected by U.S. trade tensions. The industry moved quickly. Suncor's Rongsheng deal was signed just weeks later, and natural gas is also part of the plan. LNG Canada, a $40 billion project in Kitimat, BC, led by Shell and PetroChina, will begin shipping 14 million tons annually starting in late 2025, targeting Japan and China, where gas demand is growing 8% yearly. According to the IEA, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is advocating for the revival of the Energy East pipeline to supply eastern Canada and Europe, while Trudeau is exploring Arctic routes for LNG shipments to Germany. Canada's energy direction is shifting away from the US, with Asia's $15 trillion energy market in focus. As Canada pivots toward Asia, energy ties with the US are weakening. The US, which relies on Canada for 60% of its crude imports, faces challenges. Tariffs may push Canada to increase shipments to China, which imported 184,000 barrels daily in 2024, a 22% increase from 2023, based on Chinese customs data. U.S. Refineries might turn to more expensive Saudi or Venezuelan oil, raising costs by $5 to $10 per barrel, according to analysts at Wood Mackenzie. Despite tensions over issues like Huawei and canola, Canada and China continue oil trade as a practical necessity. Bloomberg notes that no sanctions affect crude oil because it is vital to both countries. With TMX in operation and LNG Canada nearing launch, Canada is repositioning itself as a global energy supplier, not just a U.S. one. In a September 2024 speech, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith described this as energy sovereignty, projecting $500 billion in export revenue by 2035. Oil is central, but natural gas and hydro are also key players. LNG Canada's first shipment, expected in December 2025, will carry 2 million tons to Asia. PetroChina holds a 15% stake, according to Reuters. Canada exports 8.66 billion cubic feet of gas daily, all currently going to the U.S. This will diversify as LNG opens new Atlantic and Arctic routes by 2027, targeting Europe's post-Russia energy needs. Meanwhile, Hydro-Quebec and Ontario Power Generation exported 42 terawatt-hours of hydroelectric power to the U.S. in 2024, enough to power 4 million homes, earning $2 billion, according to Natural Resources Canada. This combination positions Canada as a flexible energy provider.